I call the Honourable Member Jan Logie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Tēnā koe, Ms Logie.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair. And I would just like to echo the speech before me, really, from the member Porter Williams. And that's not all the time that I would feel that a speech from a member of the Labour Party, I could feel like I could have given it myself. And that was a speech where I really agreed with a lot of what you were saying. And I thank you for making those points around family violence. Again, and I don't think most New Zealanders realise that child, youth and family don't, as a matter of course, look to intervene to protect children when there is family violence present. And I do believe that that would be an expectation of our public, that our systems would work to protect those children. Because regardless of whether those children are physically abused when there is intimate partner violence, they are harmed. And there is harm from witnessing violence between parents. And as a country that is trying to grapple with this issue, we need to be having the systems to respond to protect them and to change our society and get rid of this curse that we have at the moment. There are a few points I'd like to speak to in this part 3 of the Vulnerable Children's Bill, and this part does contain quite a few policy points, and there are questions I would like to ask of the Minister that I haven't been the primary MP for this bill, and there are some bits where I'm not sure of, and I've been trying to find in reading the bill. And one of them, which the primary point that I would love if the Minister could provide some clarification on, is whether this bill is fixing the concerns that's been raised by the Human Rights Commission and various disability groups. This is another area where I think most people in New Zealand would be surprised to find out that we have a differential provision in law for the treatment of children with disabilities and the ability to take them from their family and put them into placements, into care. And I couldn't, and we have been asked by most groups to delete Section 141, 142 and 144 of the Child, Youth and Family Act, which enables children to be taken from their home, and that it was pointed out that often children are being placed outside of their local community, sometimes on really lengthy placements without a clear point of review, and sometimes those communities aren't even a good social or cultural fit for that child. And as we've heard, there is definitely some struggles in New Zealand about providing the right support for those families that are taking children in. And we know that actually attachment to the family of birth, and from that really early age, from a parent at least, is really important for the development and the opportunities of all children, and that includes children with disability. And the Human Rights Commission, as well as specific disability groups, have asked Parliament to give consideration to this issue and the needing more to be done to actively increase the opportunities for disabled children to be supported in their homes, including, as they said, facilitating tailored and creative solutions that are properly resourced and which enable a child to remain safely with their family, or at least maintain a strong family connection. And I couldn't find in the bill, and I'm really hoping the Minister will point out to me where it is, because it may well be in there, but I just couldn't find it. Because to me, if we're talking about vulnerability, then actually to be explicit about the needs of our children with disabilities and what we can do to support them in families that may be struggling, to enable them to have that parental attachment, is incredibly important. And it's hard to see how their needs couldn't be right up there at the top of the hierarchy of the most in need. And that currently, the Child, Youth and Family Act gives, and this isn't from the Human Rights Commission, gives disabled children lesser rights than others. And it allows disabled children, unlike non-disabled children, to be placed into full-time residential care for an indefinite period. And the provisions which enable non-disabled young people to have a say in their care. Mr. Chair.
I call the Honourable Member Jan Logie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To have a say in their care are not extended automatically to disabled young people. And that seems wrong. Because a child has a disability does not mean they don't have needs and that they can't communicate. I believe that the onus should be on the state to create systems for those children to be able to communicate at their needs wherever possible. And that also we've been told that within our law, our law enables children to be sterilised, children with disabilities, and that we have no protection in our law to prevent that happening. And that seems just so horribly wrong that I am hoping the Minister will tell me that this bill is correcting that. Another issue I would like to talk to around this is the requirement for the consideration to be given to requests for support for young people leaving state care to live independently. And we heard from Dingwall Trust on the day I got to hear some of the submissions, and a very amazing young man who had left state care at the age of 17 with no identification, no ability to sign tenancy agreements or any other agreements. And sadly, he ended up on the streets with alcohol and drug problems, just trying to cope with these things that had been thrown at him at the age of 17. But later he came in contact with the Dingwall Trust, and with the support he got then, he was able to turn his life around and just is now in pre-med and working with Māori TV. It was a truly inspirational story. But they were calling for there to be a transition and an extension to, I think they were suggesting the age of 25 as a matter of course, because, we're throwing young people out earlier than any other English-speaking country. I can't understand why we are being so harsh in this country to our young people who I do believe all care so much for. And the view of young people who have experienced the system and their advocates was this bill needed to provide extended duties of care, not just exceptions in the ability for the state to intervene in exceptional circumstances, but to provide extended duties of care to enable gradual plans to transition young people to independence. In Monash University, some of their research found that the cost of a poor transition was $738,000 to the state per person. So even if you have to go to those rational economic arguments and everything coming down to a dollar figure, which is painful to me, but even if you do that, this is still a sensible investment, and I do think it would pay off. And I'm very disappointed to see that the bill hasn't separated the transition from birthdays, and even the opportunity to link it to the end of exams and put it in there once somebody's finished those key milestones in their life, but to extend it right through that period of youth up to the age of 25, I would have thought would be ideal, which doesn't preclude independence. And another point I would like to speak on, which is a core point for us and maybe one of the main ones where we're having to oppose this bill, is placing the onus on a parent of a subsequent child to demonstrate that he or she is safe to parent if a child was permanently removed due to abuse or neglect previously. Because we know protective parents are losing custody of their children because of the behaviour of abusers, and that is happening. And we would hate to see a situation where a woman had managed to escape, and even imagine her partner having been through treatment and managed to get himself sorted and back together, where she would face the possibility of losing her next child because of the actions of an abuser. That, to me, does not seem to be about justice, and the proving that reversing the onus of proof is a very big step, and one that we don't believe.
I call the honourable member Ian McKelvey.
Question be now put.
No, I've seen Asanati Lolly Taylor take several calls.
Mr. Chair.
So I'm going to call the honourable member